This week's video is sponsored by PCBWay. More about them later. Hey everybody, welcome to Cut, Transform, Glue. This time, instead of jumping right into the action, I wanted to start this build by testing a few ideas in 2 dimensions first. So I grabbed a piece of paper and sketched a quick, simple silhouette. You don't need much more than that to start a new project. And these are the pieces we'll be using to make the body of this gentle giant. Now, because of a lack of surface area and to improve the super glue adhesion, I gave the round pieces a bit of sanding. Once they were glued together, I could go for that awesome concave shape which will create the transition to the waist piece. Again, did some sanding to increase the surface area and help the seal glue, and then attached it as aligned as possible. Next, I wanted to remove the top of the green piece. I wasn't sure yet what would go there, but I definitely wanted that space open. I threw way too many lines with a center finer, then I poked a hole on it with a pin vise and went for my cutting compass tool. Now, I won't lie, this cutting compass kinda sucks, but it's the only one I have, and so it took me a while to get through that thick plastic. But eventually, I got there. Then it was time to work on the waist piece, which was the cap of some festive foam kind of thing, literally found in the gutter. I stacked a couple of discs together and then went for my drill press to put a hole on it. That hole, I attached a steel pin, which will be the connector to the body of the robot. That part was then attached to the spray cap, and then I made a matching hole on the body of the robot. And the connection was nice and solid, but as you can see, there's a big ugly hole in that spray cap which I needed to take care of. So I removed that extra tab that was kinda poking forward, aiming to make that part flat. Did some final touches with a sanding stick. And then I started taking some precise measurements of that opening. And that's because it was time to make the first custom part for this project. I wanted to add a super cool air vent in that spot, so I had to 3D model it. Pretty quickly, I had my custom air vent ready to be attached, and it instantly made the waist piece look so much cooler. Next, I felt the body needed a slanted face just to make it clear which side was the front of the robot. I threw down some parallel lines to keep everything aligned and marked the cross section I needed to remove, first going with a snap knife and then with the Dremel. Then I grabbed some sanding sticks to kinda chamfer that edge. And with that nice flat spot, I could then attach a piece of 1mm styrene. And removing the extra styrene was so easy. And with that, the basic shape of the body of this robot was finished, and I was ready to move on to the next part. For this project, I wanted to develop a kind of poseable ball joint. At first, I went with this slot solution. It let me move the leg joint up and down, nested in that concave shape. But then I came up with an even better idea and switched for this toothed version right here. With this second design, I can position the ball joint and lock it in a specific angle. This is still a work in progress. I'm planning to develop it further and maybe even sell this design, but so far it's working great for this build. And as you can see by the insane amount of leftover pieces, it took me a couple of tries to get there. But yeah, eventually I got it working and used it to make both the leg and waist connectors and of course the shoulders. I got the first ball joints installed on the spray cap piece with one extra pivot point, just so I could achieve a really nice pose on the model. And I did the same thing on the shoulders. And with that, with the power of 3D printing, I had the ball joints for all the limbs ready to go. And speaking of how 3D printing can take your projects to the next level, let's hear a word for our sponsor, PCBWay. My projects are always full of custom printed pieces. That's a huge theme here on the channel, and PCBWay is a real one-stop shop with 3D printing, CNC machining, PCB manufacturing, and a bunch of other services where you can order your designs with ease. Right now, they're running a Christmas campaign which goes until December the 28th with a lot of free coupons and a 10% off on transparent prints and orders with the Somos Letals resin. You don't want to miss this one, so make sure to check the link below, and a huge thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this week's video. With the ball joints in place, it was time to work on the limbs, and there's no better material to test shape, size and geometry than cardboard. In order to keep my cuts parallel, I threw some lines on the board, and then it was just a matter of cutting and testing ideas against the body of the robot. And by the way, at this stage of the process, the best thing you can do is simply attach the pieces of cardboard using some hot glue. Eventually I landed on some shapes that I really liked and made a template using the real deal, styrene. But even though this is 3mm styrene, super thick, it is still not thick enough for this robot, so I had to stack the pieces. Not 2, not 3, but actually 4 layers, reaching a total of a 12mm thick leg, or about half an inch. Then I marked the lines using the template piece, and then I went for the sketchiest cut I've ever made with a jigsaw, while I still don't have money for a small bandsaw. But at least it got the job done. I do what I have to do with what I have. That's my motto around here. The finishing touches on this styrene piece were done using my mini disc sander, pushing that little thing to its limits, and then I attached the ball joints on them. Using double-sided tape, I attached the leg segments together so I could drill a hole through both of them on the drill press. As a temporary solution, I'm using M4 bolts and nuts to attach the segments together, which lets me add some tension to the whole thing and keep it in place. And there's also a ball joint made using a bead this time for the ankle of the robot. feet, I went shopping again and found a couple of good looking pieces, the back of a speaker and another cute little wheel. And the way I like to do things, these are held together with a bigger shape. And lastly comes the crown-shaped piece, which is where the bead ball joint is nested. For the arms, I went with the system I developed a long time ago, some laser-cut acrylic shapes. Now, as you can see, there are these slots all along the edge, and that allows me to break it in the length I need. On top of that comes more custom parts. I'm shamelessly using as many printed pieces as I can in this project. Feel free to hate in the comments down below. But yeah, one might ask, why not just go with fully printed parts? Why all this trouble? Well, PLA isn't that strong, so making these plastic sandwiches, as I like to call them, gives me a sturdier piece that's going to last a long time. Another aspect I'm really focusing on this build, and where 3D parts also helps a ton, is poseability. I'm going for a bunch of pivot points, which will hopefully let me set it in a really cool pose by the end of the project. So right here, for instance, I can add a rotation in the middle of the arm, both the upper arm and also where the hand will be. And with that in mind, I made the whole thing. As you can see, it allows me great posing opportunities. Maybe I can even use this arm design on future projects. Now, as of right now, only a snug fit is holding the parts together. So the next thing I did was define the pose. So in not so important places like the knees, I could add some drops of glue and define the final pose of this model. If you're an old subscriber, been here for a long time, you know that now comes the final detail pass, where I'll try to bring this model to the next level using detail pieces I have in my collection. After that fun process, I put a coat of primer on the whole thing. But as you can see, something really important was missing, the hands. And here's the thing. At first I tried making the fingers using some thin pieces of styrene, like this one right here, this piece of 1mm styrene with some acrylic pieces glued on top of it. As you can see by the flexibility of the styrene, that would allow me to kind of pose the fingers. But after a coat of primer, the whole thing became so brittle. The quickest and best looking solution I found were again some 3D printed parts. Now as you can see, this one has a kind of a tunnel on the bottom of the finger, and that's so I can put a wire through it. As you know, wires have copper inside, so they're naturally reinforced and will be much sturdier, while still allowing me to pose them. And with those parts and many others, I made the cutest pair of hands I've ever made for a robot. I really loved the result, not to beat my own drum right here. And there's one extra pivot point on the hand. As you can see right there, I can twist it to the pose I need. I'm definitely making a second robot with this arm design. After that came the final coat of primer on the whole thing, and it was ready for the painting process. Now this painting process right here was super simple. For starters, I wanted to achieve a ancient robot kind of look where the viewers could actually see the action of time, almost as if it was like a sculpture in real life. So I began with a coat of matte white spray paint on the whole thing, and then I moved on to the chipping process and finally jumped right into the wash process, making this super dirty and rusty. Now this is not ideal depending on the look you wanted to achieve, as the matte paint really grabs the wash layer, but for this one it was just what I needed. Tried some crazy techniques like making some streaks using a compass, and then made some smoke marks on the surface using the airbrush. And with that, the pieces went from looking super clean and perfect from the white to this nasty look right here, which I loved. Now wait a minute, something is missing right here at the top. What could go there? I won't lie, my idea kept changing throughout the whole process. Initially, I wanted to include a human figure controlling the robot. Then, I thought of making a garden, one of the weirdest ideas I've ever had for a build, but eventually, looking through my collection of lenses, I found the answer. This is the collector, and it spends its time on Earth looking for beautiful things. And as you can see by how dirty his hands are, he's always digging around looking for the perfect treasure. This is the scene I tried to create this time. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this idea, and please, the best thing you can do right now is to smash the like button. Really, that boosts my video so I can reach more people and stop with the sketchiest cuts ever. A special thanks to my patrons, and as always, thank you for watching. Now for the beauty shots.